Welcome, Wanderer. Companion Druid just got even stronger. We went from billions to trillions of damage with a few tweaks and twerks to our ravens. And not only that, we're speedrunning a Pit 100 in under 2 minutes. Probably the easiest 300 Paragon points you will ever have had. Now, before we get into the changes, what is Companion Druid? How do ravens work? Step 1, you need the unique Druid power Savagery. Your companion skills are altered to also be core skills. This removes the cooldown of the ravens and you can spam them away. If you would have infinite spirit, how do you have infinite spirit? That is a combination of the Mjolnir ring. While Cataclysm is active, you gain unlimited spirit, and the Cataclysm itself being permanently up. Right now, my Cataclysm had a 20-second duration and a 34-second cooldown. Now you would say, but Pony, this doesn't overlap. Well, it does. As you can see, the cooldown of Cataclysm just goes down like crazy. And that's because of your spirit boons. Nature magic skills have up to a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate skills by 2 seconds. But Raven is usually not a nature magic damage spell. How do we do that? Before we get to this, you also want to extend the ultimate duration, and we need Energize for random energy restoration. That random energy restoration is one of the most important things in the whole build. Plus, bonus critical strike damage and damage reduction from elite. Now, how do we make Ravens also be a nature magic storm skill? And that is with the aspect of the Storm Crows. Ravens now deal lightning damage. Okay, this is the full package. We have an infinite Cataclysm with Ravens being spammable because of unlimited spirit with the Mjolnir ring, and due to the cooldown reduction from the Raven storm damage, we can use Cataclysm over and over again. Where does the energy restoration now come in? The energy restoration is needed for two things. First, overabundance. Every 100 spirit you generate above your maximum. So even if you have unlimited spirit and you can't generate more spirit, we still generate more spirit. You get 100% more damage. And that can stack up to 3 times for 300% bonus damage. The second thing is massive damage boost together with the Hawk Quox rune. We spend 400% of our maximum resource, which happens extremely quick, and I'll tell you why in a second. Casting a skill depletes all our resource, and we get 100% more damage for 1 second. All the ravens descending at this point go vroom, super up. How are we now spending the resource though if we have unlimited spirit and our ravens actually don't cost anything? That's where Purge the Infected comes in. Dealing direct damage to a poisoned enemy spends 5 spirit to be a guaranteed critical strike. Now you would say that's not going to be a lot of spirit. But if you look at the Pock rune, it goes up like vrt, 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 because every single little bit of damage that you do, every lightning strike, every bite of a raven gets made to be a critical because enemies are permanently poisoned. And therefore, you're consistently just depleting your resource and restoring your resource, but you have unlimited resource, but it's still happening in the background. And that's where we can add another trick. That would be the Banished Lords Talisman. After you spend 275 of your primary resource, your next core skill is guaranteed to overpower. Plus core skill ranks, our ravens are now core skilled, so more damage. And we get 72% more damage to our overpower crits, and we only crit because of Purge the Infected. Now this Banished Lords Talisman does not have to be your gloves. It could also be your boots, or it could be your pants. And suddenly, we have overpowers over overpowers over overpowers dealing trillions of damage. Because, as you can see here on the symbol, we are actually using up our spirit like crazy. Now, in order for that Banished Lords Talisman and the Pock Quox rune to continuously work, we need Lucky Hit Chance. And for this, we have Fist of Fate, either as our glove or as our pants. And for the Fist of Fate, you want the greater affix to Lucky Hit Chance and then a lot of attack speed as well. The critical strike chance does not matter at all. It will also have our damage go randomly from 1 to 360% bonus damage. Why do we want the Lucky Hit Chance? Because it will activate our Energize way more often. And we will continuously trigger Earthen Might. Damaging enemies with Earth skills has up to a 15% chance to restore all your spirit and give us 70% increased critical strike damage. But wait, how do we have Earthen Might and the Perfect Storm if we play the one with Nature Companion skill? And could we also play Ursine Strength? Yes, we could, but first, how do we get these two? That would be Gatlin's Birthright. It says, while in human form, casting ravens, nature magic critical strikes, nature magic skill, will give us 2 key passives, the Perfect Storm and the Earthen Might. Now the Earthen Might only works on Earth skills, and that's why we also have on our totem nowadays, the Earthen Might key passive also applies to your Storm skills. This has us only spam Raven and activate 3 key passes at the same time. Now you could technically remove the Mighty Storms aspect and instead add a random Earth Spike into your skill bar. Problem is, that means you would have to every 5 seconds use Earthern Spike to get the maximum super damage. And that feels terrible. Because we want to just zoom over the screen and get out our Ravens, and I don't want to threaten an Earthern Spike. What you could alternative do is, we could swap away from the one with nature to end up with the Ursine Strength. That would give us 30% more life, 20% more damage, and 100% more overpower damage. And in order to trigger that, every 8 seconds, you would have to do a random Pulverize. Now there's an interesting thing about that Pulverize though. You would turn into a werebear, and we're actually playing the Wild Transformation Chaotic perk. Shapeshifting into a new form gives us for 5 seconds an additional bonus. If we shapeshift into werewolf with our Bloodhowl, we get 20% more critical strike damage. If you go into the werebear form, so a random Pulverize every 8 seconds, you get 20% damage reduction. And if we now put the points into Debilitating Roar for the Fortify, and also the 25% bonus damage while the Roar is active, well, guess what? Every 8 seconds when I randomly actually Pulverize, I get that 25% bonus damage, plus the damage reduction, plus the 100% overpower damage, plus the 20% damage bonus. Again though, you would have to do that in between, and I personally prefer just to do the one with nature, because we're already at billions, and we're already speedrunning Pit 100 in under 2 minutes. This would probably be if you want to Pit push. If you want to do Pit 120 and beyond, if you really want to go deeper, then you could do this, but I don't recommend it. Now again, the Fist of Fate and the Banished Lords Talisman, they don't have to be exactly in these positions. The Banished Lords could also be your pants, and the Fist of Fate could be your gloves. What you need to have though is the Kilt of the Blackwing not as your pants. So Kilt of the Blackwing could be your gloves, and Kilt of the Blackwing could be your boots. And then the other two need to be adapted. Why do we not want Kilt of the Blackwing as our pants? Because we get 120% Raven damage instead of 100% Raven damage. It's 20% more, why wouldn't we take it? As our chest, we added Shroud of the False Death for that passive boost, it's insane. And we added the Neo Room for the Warcry for 15% bonus damage. Here, you could kick out Neo for Ahu and Zan. Ahu triggers Unlucky Hit, we have a lot of Lucky Hit, and Zan gives us even more overpowers. I don't have these two. Our ring, instead of playing the aspect of Wild Rage, is playing Retaliation now, because we're always fortified, since we use the Debilitating Roar on our Pulverize, and the Roar itself. Works very well. Here you want Cataclysm cooldown reduction and Cataclysm cooldown reduction to really make sure that your Cataclysm is always up. Worst case scenario, if you struggle, you can always put 3 points into Endless Tempest instead of having 3 points into Natural Disaster. Sure, it will lower your damage, but it will enable you to actually have the Cataclysm up all the time. And since we now overpower, we had to change things in the Paragon board. We have Keeper Glyph here in the beginning. Then we move into the Untamed board and we play the Dominate Glyph with 79 points. That gives us another 10% overpower multiplier. Very good. And has us sit here at 3000 crit and overpower damage. Pretty mighty. Then we're moving into the Heightened Malice board for the 35% bonus damage against poison enemies. 5% more per poison enemy around you to really push those billions up with the Spirit Glyph, 74 points. Get all the dexterity you can. Into the Thunderstruck board, together with Ursine Sky. And then lastly, the Ancestral Guidance, which also permanently works because you're actually spending Spirit. And the Human Glyph, and right now the rest of the points would pump the Human up like crazy. Very important, make sure that you have enough armor and resistances. This can be somewhat tricky, and I am currently using the Incenses. Soothing Spice for more resistance, and then also the Song of the Mountain for more armor. Soothing Spice also gives you more armor. And lastly, the all stats, 60 to all stats. It works so good to have us sit at 870 armor with the Grand Skull in my amulet in order to get that armor up now to 1000. I still have some tiny armor nodes I can take that will push me further up, including the armor node over here. Companion cooldown reduction not needed. Bonus armor though needed. That's going to make it happen. And if I need more resistance, I would have tons of tiny resistance nodes that you get floating around as well. Plus all the maximum life nodes, because you want to have a certain amount of maximum life to not die. That's where the Shroud of the False Death helps tremendously with the maximum life on your weapon and with maximum life on your offhand. You could get cooldown reduction here on your offhand too to make sure to always have your Cataclysm, but you notice the Cataclysm is up enough. You don't actually need it. This is just literally if you're struggling in the beginning, if you're struggling to put it together to get to this point. For bonus armored resistance, you could also take Rahir as your Mercenary, but I'm using Subo for that 25% bonus critical strike damage, also the bonus movement speed, and the bonus movement speed from Variana and attack speed so you can spam as fast as possible. Don't worry about movement speed in general if your boots are not boots, because you get 55% here while Cataclysm is active, and another 45% in human form, putting me exactly at that 200% movement speed as then the Cataclysm is active. What would I do now to push this build even further to the super next level? Greater affix to Ravens. Greater affix lucky hit chance. Greater affix to core skills. Greater affix to humanity and willpower. Ranks to envenom instead of attack speed probably. This one is kind of perfect, but with Endless Tempest, I could get even more. And obviously, triple Masterwork Ravens instead of having like these shoddy Masterworks. The interesting part though is, with these shoddy Masterworks that I have here, I'm speedrunning Pit 100 in under 2 minutes. Let's effing go, chat. Now go out there, destroy everything, and farm those mythics easier than ever. Enjoy, and take care.